Hey, we are live on the No Fear podcast, and I'm with an old friend of mine. Years ago, I just found out, Mark, you just moved from Malibu recently. I just discovered, and now you're in Miami. Amazing background. What prompted the move?
Taxes primarily. No, and I like Miami Beach a lot. We've been here over the years. Come here for a week or two at a time, and wanted a change of scenery as well. So
and you got one. People can't see this because this gets released as audio, but you just showed me the view there. It's amazing, gorgeous.
Yeah, it's spectacular. Yeah, no, I mean it's I love Malibu. I will always love Malibu. But one of the things about where I was in Malibu, I had an awesome house, but I was housebound. I worked out of my house. If I wanted to go get a cup of coffee, go buy a paper, go to the gym, go work out, go hike, go to the beach, go paddle, I had to get my car and do that. Right. And I've been here 5 months and haven't had a car. I walk everywhere. I'm walking 4 to 8 miles a day. So, it's flat, but I mean, it's people would say, well, you're hiking, getting a lot of hiking in. Bike path out my backyard here. I can paddle, stand-up paddle up the Indian Creek and out in the ocean here whenever I want. The water's 15 degrees warmer than it is in California. Stop me when you've heard enough, but I mean, it's that's kind of the new attraction here is just a change of venue.
Nice. And a few years ago, I was at your headquarters in Malibu. You had that whole setup there. Did you move that, or you still have a plant there? Did you move everything?
Wait, you came to my offices in Malibu,
right?
So shortly after that, I bought a couple of warehouses up in Oxnard. So we have 2 warehouses in Oxnard that we've outgrown already because our food company is growing so big right now that it's just crazy. We're one of the fastest growing food companies in the country, Primal Kitchen. So we have about 25 employees in the Oxnard offices, and then we have another 50 spread throughout the country.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. How many years have you been in? We'll do a little preamble, bio when we post this. Most people anybody in the fitness health industry will know who you are. I have a lot of cops and military martial artists who follow me, and they may not know who you are. I think a lot of them will, but what's your elevator?
Yeah, well, it's too long for it. It's got to be.
If you were stuck in an elevator for a day.
Yeah, it's got to be at the Empire State Building.
Right.
No, I mean, I was a former endurance athlete who tried to do everything right according to the conventional wisdom of the day. Tried to train by putting in a lot of hard miles and tried to eat lots of carbs and fuel all those miles. And more was better on both accounts for most of my athletic background. And I got really fast and I got really sick. So while I was, sort of the picture of fitness on the outside, I was falling apart on the inside. I had arthritis and tendonitis and irritable bowel syndrome and upper respiratory tract infections and a whole host of maladies that it turns out stemmed from not just overtraining, but the choices that I was making in the diet. So I retired at a fairly early age from elite competition and settled down to try and find a way to be strong and lean and fit and healthy without so much pain and suffering and sacrifice. And that's what I've dedicated the last 35 years of my life to doing, which is finding these hidden genetic switches that we all have that are turned on or off based on choices that we make in food, types of exercise, types of movement, sleep, sun exposure. All these things affect gene expression. And so we have this incredible power at any point in our lives to reinvent ourselves. And that's kind of what I coach people in how to make those sort of decisions that will get you to your goal perhaps a little bit more efficiently than your current choices.
I think a lot of people at a superficial level connect or think of you as the guy who wrote the Primal Blueprint and see that as like a diet or nutrition book. But there's way more. There's way more to your philosophy. It's much, as you described briefly there, it's a lot more holistic and integrated than just eating.
Far more. I mean, it's certainly, that's what appeals to most people, because look, 50% of our waking hours are thinking about food. So that appeals to a lot of people. But I wrote another book shortly after The Primal Blueprint called The Primal Connection. And in that book, I talk a lot about the other aspects of sleep and sun exposure and play and using your brain and being out in nature, and how just the sounds and the smells of nature can have an impact on gene expression, and how, we're better off playing in the dirt than we are sanitizing our hands every 15 or 20 minutes all day long, like some people do. Almost counterintuitive to modern society, but certainly in keeping with the genetic background that we have, the evolutionary history of humankind. And my whole thesis is basically that our genes expect certain behaviors of us. And if we don't give those genes the inputs that they expect, then things start to go wrong. So the challenge is to figure out ways in which to incorporate this hunter-gatherer ancient experience that our genes expect into, a hedonistic lifestyle where, look, I got nothing against people, having pleasurable experiences as often as they can. So I'm just trying to see how those fit together, how we can honor our genes, but also have this ability to extract the greatest amount of enjoyment, contentment, pleasure, fulfillment out of every moment possible. And that includes every bite of food you eat. Make every bite of food meaningful and tasteful. That includes having good experiences working out, and not just, getting through it because, holy shit, when this is over, I'm going to feel so good. That includes hanging out with friends. That includes sex. I mean, that includes all these great opportunities that we have on a daily basis to experience life in the real time, and to extract that marrow, as they say.
Right. That's pretty, it's so simple when while you were explaining that, I kept thinking about like just the simplicity of, whatever your day, whatever type of day you're having, whatever stress you're having, the day you stop and you just walk down the beach and put your feet in the ocean for a couple of minutes, or get into nature here. I've never been around anybody who didn't have like a big resounding sigh and all the stress came off their shoulders. Like a minute of nature and chilling and just connecting to that stuff just changes everything. And if people listening to the podcast think about the time you bit into an amazing strawberry or a banana, or like a really clean salad, or it's so simple. What is the trick for people? Because everyone's looking like these days, everything's about the hack and the quick fix and what's the secret to this.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all work, but you've got to approach it, as if it's just part of the process and not a task. Almost like what you said about the workout, where you kind of like doing it, but you're really not connected to it. It's like, I want to get through this so I can be done. Tips for...
Yeah. So, let's talk about exercise a little bit. I spent 25, 30 years of my life managing pain, right? I was an endurance athlete. So I was a marathoner for a bunch of years. And then I shifted into triathlon. And I put in miles and miles and miles. And I'm a veteran of 200 endurance contests: mile, 2 mile, 5K, 10K, marathon, triathlon. And at the end of the day, when you look back at a race like that, there's no point in time, from the time the gun goes off until the time you cross the finish line, that you can ever say, holy crap, this is fun. You're managing pain. You're in the zone. You're controlling your breathing. You're dealing with mini crises and cramps in your legs, or a stitch in your side, or nausea, or just lactic acid building up. There's a lot to be said for that in terms of building character. But like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I just thought back to my history as an endurance athlete. Wow, that was just I'm not going to do that ever again. I'm never going to get in another race. I'm never going to put myself in that situation. What I am going to do is I'm going to find opportunities to have fun. So, like, I play ultimate frisbee once a week with a group of very healthy, very fit, very skilled young people. And I'm chasing their asses around the field for 2 hours. I am sprinting and stopping and turning and twisting for 2 hours. It's the toughest workout I do all week. It takes me all the next day to recover just so I have to sit on a bike and just ride easy. And yet the whole time I'm doing it, I'm like, God damn, this is so much fun. Right. I'm having so much fun. And, like halfway through the game, people say, what are we playing to? Are we playing the 20 or are we playing the 21? Win by 2? And I'm like, shit, I'll play to 35. I could keep going. I love this stuff.
Right.
I'm not, and so it's a lot of work. It's the best workout I'm having all week. It's moving in all different planes and ranges of motion, which is what I prescribe for most people. And yet there's no point when I'm thinking to myself, when's it going to be over? The only thing I'm thinking is, oh, shit, we only got, there's only 2 points left before somebody wins. I wish we could keep playing. So that's the kind of mindset that I wanted to find for myself. I do a lot of stand-up paddling. And paddling for me is meditative. I go alone. I don't like to necessarily go with other people. I will if they're around, but I really like to go alone. I set my own pace. And again, I'm out with nature. In Malibu, it's with whales and dolphins, and in Florida, it's with manatees and all kinds of fish and things like that. So, but the point is, once again, I'm never really thinking about when's it going to be over. I'm just thinking, oh, geez, I got to get back pretty soon because I got a call to make or I got a business thing. So that's the difference for me now, is that most of my workouts are contemplated to have fun as opposed to get through them or slog through them or, somehow feel like I've surmounted some huge challenge that I didn't want to do, but damn it, I did it. I still go to the gym. Right. I still go to the gym and I'll do two, upper body workouts, full routines a week. But, when I go to the gym, that's my cheers. I work out of my house. So I go there for my happy hour, I talk to people in between sets. I'm none of it feels like I'm busting my ass or gonna, look, the reason I go to the gym is so I don't get injured when I'm playing too. Right. So a lot of the stuff I do is contemplated to be more injury prevention than strict bodybuilding kind of stuff.
Right. Do you think, and it's fascinating listening because I was on another call recently with a good buddy of mine who's a former baseball player and now he's in the strength and conditioning field, and he brought up the idea of always combining something that is effective for you. We're talking about from the physical fitness and development point of view, physical culture point of view, but it always had to be fun. And he emphasized the fun thing. And you're the second person, in 24 hours that mentioned that. And I'm thinking now, I turned 58 this month, and everything I do needs to resonate and balance with, the pain and condition of my body of decades of abuse being a martial artist. Otherwise, and even then I'm just finding out the fun thing. And so my question for you is, the wisdom of that. Do you think it's necessary? Like had you not gone through 15, 20 years of the pain of the endurance athlete, or you could be an MMA fighter, you could be a boxer. One day I remember talking to Sugar Ray Leonard, who I got to spend some time with years ago, where, he said, one day I was running, preparing for a fight, and I just stopped running. And and he said, the day I stopped running, I knew I was retiring after this fight.
That's so critical to my own journey. There have been moments when I thought to myself, now I'm in my late 50s, I'm in my early 60s, I'm still really fit. I could jump into a race and win my age group. I could go out and kick some ass, some senior ass now, and I'll put on a pair of shoes and head out the door to go run, and I get 200 yards down the road, and I go, what the what am I thinking? This
Right.
is ridiculous. I don't want to do this. It's not. And the point is, I've lost my mojo. And
Right.
that's what Sugar Ray was talking about. That's what a lot of fighters talk about. There's a point at which, because it takes such resolve to get up every day and do it again and do it again and do it again. And because you can't take time off. I mean, you can take brief moments, but you can't really take time off because you lose that edge. You lose that desire, that, you know, I mean, even somebody like Lance Armstrong, who had a huge chip on his shoulder, that's what drove him. He got up every single day because he wanted to drive and be the best. You know, that's why, you know, I mean, Wayne Gretzky would take, you know, all those shots. That's why Michael Jordan would hit 1,000, you know, go for 1,000 field goal attempts a day. It's this mindset that's almost a sickness. It's almost an obsession, and it's required of virtually every elite athlete. And it's a good thing until it goes away. And once it goes away, it's almost impossible to get it back. And that's what happened to me. And so the good news is that I don't really have anything I'm training for. So I show up in the gym and it's like, I'm going to be 65 in a month. You know, I'm not going to set a PR on the bench anymore. Right. Those days are gone. So, you know, what am I using as my metric? What is my baseline? It's fun. It's am I having fun? And so now, you know, I consider myself a semi-pro ultimate player just in my own head. I'm making up this story in my head. Right. But it's I love it so much. I would play it more often if I was younger and could recover more quickly from. I could play twice a week, but it's a different mindset. And so the elite athlete has a certain mindset, but even, you know, so now we take a step back and we say, even the sort of the top age group bodybuilder or the brown belt, black belt martial arts person, they're serious about this, and they have to have that mode, that incentive to get up and do it again and do it every day. And all of that is great, but there's a point at which, and typically it happens when you get older and you get injured or you get tired, or you just say, you know what, and you just say, I've lost it. And it's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just is. I can't summon up that jam anymore to go do it. It is what it is. And so now my life is going to be about, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to waste away. I'm not going to atrophy, but I am going to find ways in which to fit this into my lifestyle so that I have, in my case, and I have more fun. I just actively seek fun things. You know, I do some slacklining. It's just a fun little pursuit. It works on balance. It doesn't hurt. You know, there's everything about it is fun, and there's nothing about it that's dangerous or injury provoking or or beats you up, and yet it benefits you in terms of balance and in terms of a number of other things. So I'm just seeking these. Look, I bought a 6-foot skateboard with a long what they call a land paddle, so I can literally paddle down the bike path on a skateboard instead of being on the ocean.
Right.
Just looking for fun shit.
Shit. Do you think where I was going to before is like I was, here I am in my 50s, and I remember being in my 20s and 30s meeting people who are 55, 60 going, man, look how old that guy is. Right. And now I'm that guy, and I'm like, and I'm giving my son advice a couple of weeks about some stuff. And while I'm telling him some of my life lessons and business thoughts and things, I'm thinking, if I was 26 years old like him, I'd be smiling and nodding, but I'd be going, yeah, right. Okay, thanks. And so where I was going at this, because if people check you, if somebody doesn't know who you are and they check you out online, I mean, you walk the walk and walk the talk. I mean, you're physically fit. You've done the stuff. You've written the books. You do the workouts. You're not like one of the gurus. There's a lot of gurus out there where you're like looking at the person going, does this person even like eat properly or work out right? I mean, you've always that's always been important when I look at anybody, is I kind of look at, and I don't judge like that, but you've been that guy. And so where I was thinking is it's, if you tell somebody who has, and this is subtle, somebody who wants to be an endurance athlete, or somebody who wants to do MMA, or somebody and right now, if I or you said, hey, listen, you need to have really focus on the fun. The long game and the long play is not to crush your body and do this, because then you're going to spend years of fixing that. And then you're going to get to hear anyhow. And like, it's solid advice, but I'm also thinking like that person has to go through it themselves is where I'm going. I'm just kind of like, I'm not being.
Yeah, no. I agree. I don't want to take back any of my experience. I don't need a do-over on anything I've done. People sometimes come up to me and say, well, geez, since you retired from competition and you've started really investigating human performance, don't you wish you knew then what you know now? And wouldn't you use all that stuff to your advantage? And the answer is, I guess so, except that I wouldn't have got to the point where I needed the knowledge. So I wouldn't be where I am today had I not had those experiences, had I not been miserable because of overtraining, had I not been beat up, had I not been injured, and then looked for new ways to cross-train, which took me into the triathlon realm. So I don't want to discount anyone's journey. And when people come up to me and say, hey, like I'm 22, I'm 25, I want to run a marathon, I'm like, geez, go for it. I'm not going to talk you out of running a marathon, even though I think it's ultimately a very destructive pursuit. But in your personal growth and in your personal journey, that might be a cool thing to do, to say, right, yeah, I ran a marathon, I finished a marathon. I mean, I would tell, if that's something you want to do, right, and you think it's fun, I will help you train for that event in the least harmful way possible. In fact, I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Primal Endurance. And the whole point was to take a look at how we train for endurance and to do it in a kinder, gentler, more sane way so that we actually do improve health while we're improving fitness. Right. Because historically, health and fitness are almost diametrically opposed. That to a certain extent, the fitter you get healthier for a while, but then once you start to get really, really, really fit, your health suffers, particularly with endurance athletes. So I just wanted to find a way to, so people would train and support their health and have a good time training and race reasonably well, with the understanding that, look, you're not going to be a world, you're not going to be an elite athlete, you're not going to win a gold medal. So let's back off and say, what's a realistic goal for you finishing a marathon? And then let's work toward achieving that goal. And absolutely, I'll support you 100% in doing that. And if you run a marathon, you finish it, and you think you want to do another one for time and go faster, I'll help you do that. But the truth is, if you're a guy and you run your second or third marathon and you haven't broken 3:30 or 3:15, find a new sport. You're just not a runner. Right. I mean, and I don't mean to judge people, but I see people who are, running 6 or 8 marathons a year. That's their sport. And they, and I'll say, well, what kind of times you're running? And they'll say, well, 3:40, 3:35, something like that. And I'm like, Jesus, I ran for 15 years. I ran 100 miles a week for 7 years. I've run 50 marathons. And at no point in my life have I ever spent 3.5 hours running. So I don't know how you do it. Right. That's just, I'm in awe of somebody that can run for 3.5 hours. But that's because I know what how devastating it can be to the body. So again, I don't mean to ramble on and trash the concept of endurance athletes, but I think somebody who wants to get a black belt in a martial art, or wants to complete a marathon, or wants to do a triathlon, more power to you. I think it's a great life lesson. It's a great life pursuit. It's a great goal that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But I think where we get into trouble is where we don't see where the end is. We keep kind of slogging away without sort of redefining what's next.
I know when I'm on the other side of the mic and I'm getting asked about training and arts and this and that, I always tell people that there's this unconscious bias that drives us to certain endeavors, whether it's a type, like a martial art or a type of sport that resonates with your personality. It resonates with certain things. And you've got to, like you said, and I was really happy, you know, I was kind of being the contrarian, you know, when I asked you the question, because I knew my answer after so many years, but it was nice to hear you say that, listen, if somebody wants to go do something, they got to do that. And the moment you tell somebody not to, you almost have that authoritarian reaction where, well, I'm going to do it because you told me not to. And I think, well, I think back now, like, you know, when I started and I opened up my first martial arts school and I started teaching in 1977, we would warm up by putting on gloves and going like, you know, did you bring a mouth guard? Okay, no. So we'll just go to the body. Like that was how you warmed up. There was no foam roller. There was no bands. There was nobody knew shit. So people are right now. This is interesting.
A Bosu ball.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was, you know, like you've done decades of research. I've done decades of research in my field. And like I always tell people, like right now, like these newer, younger athletes are in the golden era of understanding all this stuff where they can go in and still go, hey, I want to do MMA or I want to do triathlons, but they can learn, you know, like I think it's deep and important, like just even to recognize, even if you're going to something that where somebody, a much older athlete might say, hey, like you want to be careful because that's going to fuck up your body and you better watch out, you know, and that just the idea of sharing with somebody, as long as you're having fun, go for it, because that's where I really believe emotional resilience is discovered, right? Okay, resilience is a huge thing. And you know, and we could talk about genetic potential and blah blah blah, recovery and all that. But you're really making me think, Mark, about the times I had fun, even getting the shit beaten out of me while it was still fun. I was like, oh man, like, oh, you know, we got to go. That's everybody listening to this, man. Like really meditate on this fun angle. I'm just ranting here right now myself, but.
No, but I mean, it's, you know, if you look at professional sports now, you look at a lot of the NBA guys, you know, you look at Brady. I mean, he's going to play another season because it's fun. It's not because I don't think it's because he's necessarily compelled to do more. He's just having a good time. And until he, you know,
right.
That's his idea of fun. And I think, you know, if you look at all of the dangers of the NFL, you weigh the you know, the dangers of, you know, getting a crippling injury or getting, you know, some sort of head trauma against the fun. That's a daily evaluation that these guys make, and it's a legitimate choice that they make. And it's like, you know, somebody who chooses to do base jumping, they're going to get the thrill of their life.
Right.
Yes, it's got a very high risk attached to it, but they don't do it because, I mean, they do it because it's fun for them to do, right?
Right.
So
it's a great,
you know, everybody's idea of fun. You know, everybody's idea of fun sort of shifts around, and you know, and so that's what makes the world go round. Is we have different, you know, different points of view, different perspectives. So, you know, what's the theme? The theme is as long as you can extract pleasure out of your participation, and I'll call that fun, then fucking go for it. You know,
right? I dig it. Those were great examples, because I've got, you know, a good friend of mine. I've had a couple of friends that are bass drummers and climbers, and I've jumped out of an airplane twice when I was doing some research on fear, because I've got a concern with plummeting to the earth, and I don't like heights. So I did.
It's normal.
Yeah,
it's normal.
I did the skydiving kind of as a psychological test and evaluating my whole thing, and I will never go base jumping on purpose, right? I know that would not be fun for me. So great examples. How many books have you written? Because like every 5 minutes you go, I wrote another book.
I know. I mean, it's like 9 now,
wow.
I think. Because you start to include cookbooks. You know, I've got like 5 or 6 cookbooks now. So, but most recently, the Keto Reset Diet came out in October. That was the latest real solid investigative book that looked into the ketogenic diet and its incredible ability to assist people with achieving metabolic flexibility.
Nice. So there's been a lot of talk and like like anything else on the internet, but also everyone's got a different opinion. There are people who say keto's the thing. There's people who say keto's not. It's a temporary thing. It's a temporary solution. What's your? I have not read the book, to be honest, but I do want to talk about that. Is this like is the reset a permanent thing? You stay keto, or is it used intermittently? Both?
Yeah, it's used intermittently. So it's basically, it's a strategy to help you improve metabolic flexibility over the rest of your life. And it's like training. I mean, you can train hard, and then that training lasts you a while. But then if you don't train for any period of time, for any length of time, you sort of detrain and you lose that. And if you want to get better, you have to start training again. So with regard to metabolic flexibility, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to teach the body to become really good at burning fat. I mean, that's really what we've arrived at over the past several decades. Is the body is born, we're born to be good at burning fat. The body wants to be good at burning fat. The body wants to extract most of its energy from stored body fat, but we don't let that happen because of our dietary choices early on. So I wrote the Primal Blueprint 10 years ago to espouse my views on a low-carb eating strategy that got rid of simple sugars and processed grains and whole grains and some legumes, and got down to what we call a real food eating strategy. And by virtue of eliminating a lot of the crap, you get to the point where you're only taking in 100 to 120 grams of carbs a day. And it turns out people do very well on that low a level of carbohydrate. You don't need that much more in the way of carbohydrates. So for the last 10 years, I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'm lean, I'm fit, I'm athletic, I'm strong, I maintain my body mass, I maintain my energy, I don't get sick, I don't let hunger run my life. Things are great. Why would I want to change anything? Well, I started reading some of the research, which is what I do, on a ketogenic diet. And I started looking into a lot of people that I knew who'd spent some time in ketosis. And I started hearing some pretty cool added results. And since I've been chasing performance my whole life, that's the essence of my research, is looking at human performance and how we can, find those hidden genetic switches. I thought, well, I'll do a keto experiment. And so I did a ketogenic diet for 2 months, and lo and behold, I lost even more body fat. I maintained muscle mass, actually put some muscle on, had more energy, found I could get by on less sleep at night. Some of the little inflamed areas of my body that were, I think, partly because of I was, overusing some of the joints and things like that, subsided. And I thought, Jesus, this is pretty amazing. Here I was thinking everything was copacetic and I didn't need to change anything, but I took on this new level. I call it next level shit here. And I was able to refine my metabolism to the point where I had even more energy. I felt like I got by on fewer calories. And that was really sort of a real eye-opener for me. And I found that, I was able to, all these things, have more energy and maintain muscle mass. So it was compelling enough for me to write about it. And I thought, geez, if I thought everything was fine, and then I did this next level shit and I got to the next level, maybe there are a lot of people who are stalled in their weight loss efforts, or stalled in their whatever, who could benefit from this. And so I wrote this Keto Reset Diet book, and it's basically about going through a process, stair-stepping your way through a primal blueprint eating strategy, which is largely eliminating all the stuff we know we shouldn't be eating. And then once you become fat adapted, finding 50 or 60 grams of carbs a day that you can eliminate from your current strategy. So you get down to 50 grams of carbs a day and you go keto for 6 weeks. And we've had hundreds of thousands of people do this now. And people are just like, over the moon about the results they're getting. And it doesn't mean that you stay keto for the rest of your life. It just means for 6 weeks, it's almost like you say, I'm going to go do a 10K. You don't just show up the day of the 10K and run.
You train.
I mean, you can. If you train for 6 weeks before the 10K, you'll do a lot better. And so we're telling people, look, if you train for 6 weeks in terms of your metabolic flexibility, you will be able to extract more energy from your stored body fat. You will be able to get by on fewer calories. You will have probably the single biggest comment that I get that I think is pretty powerful is that people say, look, my appetite, my cravings, my hunger dissipated to the extent that I sometimes even forget to eat, and I'm okay with that. If you think about how often people think about eating, and I talked about, like in the opening parts of the show here, about, half of our waking thoughts are about, okay, what's for dinner? Okay, what's for breakfast? And how hunger and appetite run people's lives. Well, this keto reset is about building what we call metabolic flexibility and metabolic efficiency. So you become better at burning fat. You become less reliant on glucose and carbohydrate. You become better at, literally create the metabolic machinery to burn ketones so that you offset the need to take in glucose of any kind. And you arrive at this space where, like, one of the common themes is people say, well, wait a minute, 3 meals a day is way too much food now. I can't eat 3 meals a day because I'm not hungry for 3 meals a day. And so typically people, like, I get up and I have a cup of coffee. I don't eat till 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
And that includes going to the gym and doing a hard workout, or going and doing a hard paddle, and then not eating afterwards. So this concept of this post-workout meal kind of goes away. And then I have my first meal, like, again, 1:30, 2 o'clock. And then I eat a second meal, 7 or 7:30, and that's it. I have 2 meals a day. That's all I need. I enjoy every single bite of food I put in my mouth, but I know when enough is enough. And that's the other skill that we develop, is this ability to just realize, there's a point at which eating another mouthful is only going to make me feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And isn't going to serve me in the long run.
No longer fun.
No longer fun. Bingo. No, but that's, it's interesting that you brought that up, because if you want to take that analysis and apply it to a big ass piece of cheesecake, all right? First bite is really fun, right? The first bite is awesome. Second bite, almost as fun. Now you just had that first little bite that got you settled and attuned your taste buds. Second bite, yeah. Third bite, by then you go, okay, I got it. I know what this is going to taste like. At what point does it stop being fun and then just become about completing the task of finishing the serving that you were served, right? And who's to say that this giant wedge of cheesecake was an appropriate serving for you? Maybe 2 or 3 bites was all it was going to take to give you that amount of pleasure, and then anything after that, it was like, as Churchill once said, we've established what you are, and now we're just haggling over price, right?
Nice. That's great. It's funny, the other night, because I'm bad with sweets, and I have enough self-awareness to go, I should not have another bite here. And then I have my whole rationalization conversation. Well, you worked out twice today. You'll work out later. You'll do a penalty row. You'll do.
Yeah. Penalty. Yeah. You'll whip yourself.
Right. But there's so much talk about just how addictive sugar is, and people throw it around like it's it's our edible cocaine. There's a point when I'm eating, when I can go where I go, my brain wants to have another bite, but I know that I'm done. Like, my stomach is full, and it's this weird self-awareness, because I've studied enough about the stuff that it's almost this experimental game where I'm there with my creme brulee, and I've had my 3 bites, and I go, you're just going to finish this, aren't you? Right?
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts on the sugar addiction? Just brief thoughts on, because I get the keto thing, because I've played with that and done all sorts of things, over the years, and it's amazing how quickly, like, I love coffee as you do, where, okay, I'm going to stop coffee for a bit just to change, and how your body goes through withdrawal, but then you get to a point where you go, I'm okay. Yeah.
Well, it's, first of all, some people can get away with a lot more than other people, right? So that's and those of us who can get away with it are hated on by those who can't. But it's human nature to see what we can get away with. We get away with whatever we can, whether it's how much of this food can I eat and not gain weight, or how much of this dessert can I eat and not feel like crap, or how much can I flirt with this chick and not have my wife get pissed at me, or how much can I not work at work and still get paid. I mean, we take it right up to the edge in every area of our life, right? So sugar is no different. We take it up to the edge, and it really depends on what we can get away with. And some people, unfortunately, can get away with so much that it doesn't show. They don't get fat, but they get type 2 diabetes, or they get, advanced glycated insulin. They age quicker because they're taking in so much sugar. They don't feel it, but over time it manifests itself negatively. So my take on sugar is, first of all, I'm a social dessert person. I don't have to have dessert, and just the way people are social drinkers versus alcoholics, right?
Right.
I'll have a couple of bites of a dessert. I know when to stop. Sometimes I don't at all, because I just have an awareness of where I'm at. I also have an awareness that if it's late at night and I have any kind of chocolate, I won't sleep. I don't like not sleeping. And so the exercise that I do is 3 minutes of gustatory pleasure worth 5 hours of tossing and turning and sweating and not sleeping. And if you can, if you logically can work through that and go, you know what, it's just a couple of bites, and it's just some gustatory pleasure that I don't really need. I'm willing to pass that up. I know my limitations. I mean, I have a problem with gluten. My original primal blueprint was, the whole premise was on getting rid of grains, because that's how I changed my life. I literally shifted my life from being a guy with IBS that had to orchestrate every movement all day long based on where the nearest bathroom was, to a guy who was completely free of that. So gluten for me was a huge game changer. Now, if somebody brings out a plate of hot, steamy, fresh baked, yeasty bread, I'll have a couple of bites. I'll have a couple of bites. I'll slather it with butter and, use it as a vehicle to mostly eat butter. But I don't, I know where my limitations are. And I know that if I have 6 or 7 bites, I'll feel it the next day, and I'll be beating myself up for the choices. But I sort of have, through this experimentation and through this journey that I've had throughout my years, I know where my limits are, and I'm willing to go right up to the edge on many of them.
I dig it. Very, very good stuff. The on the keto, I had another question about when you do the 6 weeks, you've kind of re-educated, reset your metabolism and stuff like that. Like a lot of fighters will drop, as it goes, I always do these fight metaphors. Fighters, they agree to fight a certain weight class. Guys drop 10, 15, sometimes, ridiculous amounts of weight to make weight. Then they got 24 hours, they're hydrating, they're eating, and they come in 10, 15 pounds or whatever it is bigger. But that's not sustainable. It's not good for your body. So what happens to people who do the keto for 6 weeks? What is the next level? They've now shifted there. Or how do you not gain the weight back? How do you, what's the strategy?
Yeah. Well, the strategy, first of all, the reason you do this is to refine your metabolism. So you're literally increasing the amount of mitochondria in your muscles. You're literally increasing the efficiency of those mitochondria, so you can put more fat through those mitochondria. Now, those improvements don't go away the day you go off keto.
Right.
Those are the effect of genes turning on and prompting the cells to build more mitochondria to handle the excessive or the extra amount of fat, not because you're giving it more fat, but because you're giving it less carbohydrate, fewer carbohydrates. So when the cell recognizes there's not that much glucose around, it goes to what it's programmed to do for 2.5 million years of human evolution, which is to go into this awesome fat burning stage and build these mitochondria and put more fat through the mitochondria, and then take some of the fat and send it to the liver to become ketones, and send those ketones to the brain to be used for fuel instead of glucose. All that metabolic machinery sticks around even when you are out of ketosis. Now, as long as you don't go, 350 grams of sugar every day for the next 6 weeks, because that'll have the same effect of turning genes on the other way. But as long as you stick to a reasonably healthy way of eating, and like, I'm rarely in ketosis now. I'm a guy who, I still get 120, 130 grams of carbs a day. I have a big old salad every day. I have a couple of servings of grilled vegetables at night. I might, like I say, I might have a piece or two of bread, a bite or two of bread, a bite or two of cheesecake or something like that. So I might, at the end of the day, have 150, 160 grams of carbs. Definitely not keto, but because I did the work, because I did the keto reset, because I reset my metabolism, some days I also might only have 30 grams of carbs, and then the next day I have 170. The point is, I don't feel any different from one day to the next. I am metabolically flexible. I have the energy, and I don't get woozy. I don't get lightheaded. What you hear a lot in the keto community is people who are in ketosis all the time, and then they say, "Oh, well, geez, Mark, if I have 75 grams of carbs, I get kicked out of ketosis, and I feel like crap for 3 days." And I'm like, "Well, dude, you're not metabolically flexible. You haven't done the work to create this flexibility that we seek, which is where the body will extract energy from whatever substrate is available at that point in time. It shouldn't be that you feel like crap when you are out of ketosis. It should be that your time in ketosis made you so metabolically flexible that when there are carbohydrates around, that's what you burn." And so one of the I would say, not a complaint, because nobody complains about it, but one of the red flags that some of the scientists may look at with glycolytic athletes like MMA fighters, is, well, wait a minute, we do all this glycolytic work, so why would we want to be better at burning fat? Well, to your point, one of the reasons is you want to be improving as an athlete. I don't care what sport you're in, your power to weight ratio. So to the extent that you can build muscle and burn off more fat than you currently have, no matter where you are, I think that's a good thing. So athletes that have to make weight and then continue to have as much or more muscle for having gone keto, let's just say you do keto in the off season or, months before a fight. And then you get out of keto, but you maintain a relatively low carb eating pattern. And then every time you've got a big sparring day coming up, you just have 150 grams of carbs at night. You load up your carbs. Just because you became good at burning fat doesn't mean you lose your ability to burn sugar. That's the beauty of keto. You always can burn glucose, but most people never get to the point where they're good at burning fat. They're good at burning glucose, but they suck at burning fat. And so when there's glucose around, they burn it. And then because that's all they know how to burn, when they get home, they're so freaking hungry because their body doesn't know how to burn fat. They eat more carbs. And then excess carbs causes the insulin to go up, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. So now you store more fat. Now you have to feel like you have to go to the gym and go work it off and burn it off on the treadmill again because you overate the carbs. And it's this never-ending nightmare that never really achieves the goal of teaching your body how to burn fat. The only way to teach your body how to burn fat is by withholding, restricting carbohydrates and shifting that whole genetic expression over toward fat burning and fat adaptation and ketones.
It's amazing, how much, even though I've read all the stuff, how beneficial this talk was even to me. And it's something that I tell people, we don't realize when you understand why you're doing something and you understand it simply, not in a pedantic, and I use that word on purpose because most people have no clue what it means, a pedantic way so that you can make people feel obsequious, again, a deliberate, obnoxious word, where a lot of times we do the diet and we do the training only for the result. I was on the keto diet for a day and nothing changed. I'm checking my pH balance. Nothing's changed. And we want, as opposed to understanding what you're doing. And this is what I learned from you just now, Mark, because I realized there was a kid that I was training for a fight years ago. His name was Phil, and he was an average athlete. And he called me up one day. I was driving somewhere in Illinois to one of my gigs, and he says, "Hey, coach," and he had one MMA fight, and he did okay, and he just wanted to get it out of his system. And it was almost like you reminded me when you said, "Hey, someone comes to you and say, 'Hey, I want to do a marathon,' and you're going, 'Really? You really want to do it?'" You kind of try to talk them out of it without like putting your foot down, just to make sure they really want to do it because it's going to be fun. And so Phil calls me. He's had one fight, Mark, right? And he had said, "Hey, I want to fight." I go, "Why?" Because I know he's really a mediocre athlete. I went, "Why do you want to do it?" He says, "Well, I just want to know that I could step in the ring and do it as a man. I want to know that I can face my fear." And I said, "Well, that's a good goal." Okay. And so we trained him. He won. He did the win. He's fighting with the proverbial tomato can, right?
Yep.
He calls me a month later and he says, "Coach, guess what? I got offered a fight." I go, "Phil, what do you mean you got offered a fight? Like you're 1-0 and you're only going to do one fight. So you're retired." What do you, he goes, "Yeah, Stefan called me and I got offered a fight to fight JF Balduc." I go, you got offered a title fight?" So JF Balduc was the Canadian welterweight title holder in MMA. And I go, "Phil, you're English from Toronto. JF Balduc is the Canadian champion from Quebec. This is just supposed to be a sacrifice where they kill the English guy in the ring. Like, dude, you've got no." Anyways, what was the whole point of it is a little, we ended up taking the fight. He ended up winning the fight. But I did things with him where I told him, "This is why we're going to train this way. You're not going to spar. And you're going to do this old school training." And I had him at a point where he was on a treadmill running, where he was like at 180 beats per minute doing sprints, jumping off, doing drills, where his body adapted in such a way. And for some reason, this jumped into my brain where it was, I knew why I was having him do certain things that he didn't understand, and when he understood them, he was able to invest in them and commit to it, and it supported him for the victory. Because I told him, "You're not going to beat this guy on skill, because you can't manifest skill, right? You can't. He's been fighting for 10 years. You've been fighting for 10 months, and you're supposed to lose this fight. So here's how you're going to have to beat him actually on endurance and your fitness." And that's what we did. And I know for some people are like, "What has this got to do with diet and all this?" This has to do with what I learned listening to you. Some of the things you said is, when I tried keto, what I was looking for was a cosmetic change I could see in the mirror, or an energy change that I could measure immediately. I was actually sucked into the same superficial, like, "I'm going to go keto," as opposed to, you should do this because it's good for your metabolism, it's good for your health, it's good for your nervous system, it's good for anxiety, it's good for inflammation. And if you commit to that, you're committing to your personal health, and it should become like your ultimate frisbee. "Oh, this is only 6 weeks. I feel great." Right? And it's interesting. So I wanted to thank you, just that ability, I guess, years and years of teaching and writing. I had a light bulb go off there, and I'm going to buy your book when we get off this call and do that. But this is everybody listening to this. This is whether you're learning self-defense, whether you're MMA, whether you're fitness, whatever you're doing. The thing that I just picked up from Mark here is always understand why you're doing it and do it for yourself. And ultimately that will lead to, it'll fucking be fun then, because it won't be work, because you're doing it for the right reasons. My little rant.
Yeah. Well, no, that's good. And I would say, that at the end of the day, what I discovered was that there is no one who would not benefit from spending 6 weeks in keto. So whether that's an experiment for you, whether you have some goal of fitting into a dress for a wedding, or whether you're trying to, improve your ability to burn fat because you're an endurance athlete, everyone would be well served by trying a keto experiment. There's no one who would go, "Oh, well, that was just a complete waste of time."
Right. Yeah. No. And but nobody will commit to the 6 weeks. When I did keto before, I couldn't wait till it was over because I couldn't wait for the results. And now, Right, and that's what I was getting at. I was looking, and it's funny you brought up the dress, because that was my main goal. Is like, I've got to fit in this dress by June 15th, and just kidding, everybody. I do not wear dresses, but that's what it was. My goals were superficial because of the buzz around it. Go keto, go keto. You know, you'll lose as an older athlete. You know, my proverbial metabolism has slowed down, right? And I was trying to find some hack, you know, but the hack is 6 fucking weeks of good work and know it, just like you're training for a fight, just like you're training for a marathon.
But I want to make a distinction though, because you talk about your metabolism has slowed down, and you say that like it's a bad thing. So one of the things that we look at here is we go back to what people can get away with, and we think in terms of like, what's the most amount of food I can eat and not gain weight? Or I go to the gym and I see people on the treadmill. And I go, geez, are you training for 10K or a marathon? No. We're just doing well, you're doing 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Why are you training? And invariably the answer is, because I like to eat. So are you kidding me? You would rather slog and struggle and suffer through 45 minutes, 5 days a week, so you can have a few more bites of something you probably shouldn't eat in the first place?
Nice.
You realize how insane that is? But people think in terms of, I want to develop a fast metabolism so I can eat more. Well, again, why do you want to eat more? Now, the answer, it could be because I'm hungry all the time, and that's a legitimate answer. And if that's why you want to eat more, then we have to kind of take a look at why you're hungry so often. And typically it's because you haven't trained your body how to burn fat. So what if you did the reverse thought experiment, and you said, what's the least amount of food I can eat, maintain muscle mass or put on muscle, have all the energy I want, never get sick, and most importantly, not be hungry? Because hunger ruins everything, right? Hunger destroys the whole thing. That's why diets don't work. But if you looked at this and you said, what's the least amount of food I can eat and not get hungry, I think you'll find that it's an appreciably less amount of food than you're currently eating. In my case, it's probably 35% fewer calories a day. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, a couple things. First of all, every experiment done in nature looking at longevity had to do with calorie restriction. And in apes, there was a study done on apes. In humans, it's difficult because it's just the calorie restrictions have always been with the wrong macros, and so people are miserable the whole time. But what if the calorie restriction was voluntary because you just weren't freaking hungry, and every bite of food you ate was awesome, and you knew when to stop eating, and you had all the energy you want, and you had all the muscle mass you needed, and you never got sick? What if you could get to that point where you so refine your metabolism that you're able to extract energy so efficiently out of all the calories in your body that even if you didn't eat for 3 or 4 days, you basically wouldn't lose muscle because you'd be burning fat. You'd be turning on these genetic switches that spare protein, so that you don't even chew through protein. You maintain muscle, you maintain energy, you're creating these ketones, you're house cleaning in the cells. So some of the cells in your body that are damaged or suffering from some sort of genetic miscommunication are now being repaired. There's a tremendous amount of health benefit from eating less and from having, to your point, to having a slower metabolism. It's just that people assume, well, a slow metabolism means I'm going to get fat. Well, for some people it does, because they eat more than they can burn off. But it doesn't mean that you should aspire to a fast metabolism. It just means something's not right. You're not matching your hormones, your ghrelin, your leptin, your insulin, your glucagon, and all the hormones that have to do with hunger and appetite. They're not matched with how much food you're eating, and it's just not working for you. What if we could fix that by refining your metabolism to the point where you had this metabolic efficiency and this flexibility? Just saying.
It's a great reframe, and I never thought about that way. And interesting, very, very interesting. Mark, this has been great, and I want to have you back on. I'm actually going to do the reset, and we'll get you back on. I'll measure myself and test my shit, and we'll get back on. How is it? I travel a ton. Is this a problematic if you're on the road and you can't go to the
I would argue that it's even easier if you're on the road,
Okay,
because as
good.
long as you don't eat the shit food, you got plenty of time where you're better off not eating at all than eating
Right.
shit food. So just don't eat at all. Now, again, you don't want to sabotage yourself. So there's a way you surround yourself with healthy snacks, the kind of approved keto snacks that'll get you over the hump and get you to the next real meal. Right. But I mean, I think like I don't do that much intermittent fasting. But when I do, it's usually when I'm traveling, because I just go, well, I don't need to eat today. And I'm, airplane food sucks, and I'm going to be immersed in this book. So I don't want to even have anything to do with it. So I'll have nothing for breakfast, and I'll get on a flight and have nothing until dinner that night, and perfectly fine, and never a hunger pang. I might go, I might get to the point where I'm truly hungry for dinner. That's a great thing,
Right.
but then I don't overdo dinner. And then I think to myself, shit, I burned off an extra 500 calories of fat today because it came off my ass or my thighs. And even I have some on those areas, and not off a plate of food.
Nice. I love it. Where can people get more information? What's the best place? Just your website?
Yeah. So Mark's Daily Apple, marksdailyapple.com is the blog. 12 and a half years, been writing that blog now.
Crazy.
And then primalkitchen.com is where we sell all of our keto-friendly mayonnaises and salad dressings and all the stuff that you put on those vegetables and those grass-fed burgers that make them taste spectacular and add functionality and taste to it. So primalkitchen.com. And then, Keto Reset Diet is on Amazon and so at all bookstores. So yeah, lots of ways to find out what we do here.
I'll list all that stuff when we launch the show in the next week or two. And I will be, as soon as we get off this call, I'm actually going to go and get the book and get my fat ass in gear. Dude, it was so good to catch up on you, and we will definitely have you back on, because this is very educational and inspirational. And I know that as much as I would like everybody in the world to learn how to defend themselves, most people live in a bubble, but everybody, whether they don't think about self-defense, everybody looks in the mirror and thinks about nutrition and their body and their beach body and all that stuff. And so I know you're way more than a nutrition guy, and hopefully people got that from the show. But understanding, this whole thing is huge, and it impacts everybody. So it's kind of cool. I appreciate you taking the time.
Good, yeah. Good hanging out. Good hanging out with you, Tony. Take care, man.
Okay, man. I'll speak to you soon. Take care, Mark.